We will open up the council meeting. Everybody please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Alms.
Here.
DeZiel.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Ruck. Here. Hall.
Here. Okay, there are a couple things here. First, Councilmember Brooke is attending from a distance somewhere, and we cannot see her. We don't have a TV up here, but she is in attendance. And Sarah, if you have anything to say, feel free to just break in, because like I say, we can't see if you're raising your hand. So look forward to your participation this way tonight. It'll be interesting with our new OWL system, and hopefully everything works well. So next we have public hearings. Public hearing on conditional use permit application for outdoor sales space for motor vehicles at 2000 Crestview Drive, Hudson Ford LLC. Once again, this is a public hearing, and this is your opportunity to weigh in on this subject. If you have any comments, please feel free to come forward. Make them brief if you would, and also please try not to be repetitious. So we have a public hearing. Is there anyone here who has a comment on this? Does anyone have a comment? Does anyone have a comment?
Is there anyone online that has a comment?
We only have one person on. They
Okay.
haven't indicated interest, so.
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Public hearing is closed. Discussion and possible action on a conditional use permit application for outdoor sales space for motor vehicles at 2000 Crestview Drive, Hudson Ford LLC.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a little unique situation. We had, go figure Zoom issues the last Plan Commission meeting where we would normally hold our conditional use permit public hearings. So we continued that over to the council in case anybody did have something to say about it. Staff has received no comments from the public or any of the neighbors on this issue. The permits for approximately 119 sales spots in the old bank property, which would be just to the west of the existing Hudson Ford dealership. Plan Commission recommends approval with conditions, and I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Comments and suggestions from citizens present. This is your opportunity to make comment on anything that you would like to that regards the city of Hudson, but it cannot be an item on the agenda. We usually have an opportunity for folks to speak during agenda items. You must be a resident of the city of Hudson in order to speak. Please, once again, keep your comments short, and please try not to be repetitious.
Is that okay if I jump in? And I think one thing we wanted to add just with this is that we recognize that probably a number of you are here for an agenda item that was on a past agenda that was not on this one, that Second Amendment issue. And I wanted to provide just a little background about why it's not on the agenda. Basically, we had the city attorney review, kind of what was being requested. And in the past, the city council now has determined that they're not going to be taking up these non-binding sort of resolutions. So that's why it was not placed on this agenda, just so you understand.
My name is Beth Weiskopf. I live at 2408 Donegal Way in the city of Hudson. Speaking on what the administrator just said, I'm here with frustration and disappointment in the city administrator, legal counsel, and possibly the common council. Last month, I was to present a resolution on the city becoming a Second Amendment sanctuary city. The meeting was cut short because of Zoom difficulties. I was told it would be on the agenda for the next meeting, which is tonight. When I checked the agenda and found out it was not on there. When I asked why, I was told city admin and legal took it off as it was being brought at the state level. Obviously, you've said for different reasons. I received no notice of this. I've rearranged my schedule. I have 3 children with kids' activities, which I'm not able to make it to now because of this. If I knew it wasn't going to be here, I probably wouldn't have come. I feel it is very inconsiderate to have not received any notice whatsoever that I would not be presenting. Would this be tolerated by a company doing work for the city and came to a meeting to present to find out it wasn't happening? I doubt it. Was it addressed with the councilman who brought it up, Mr. Morissette? Was it even asked of him who brought it on the agenda? Can you take it off without going back to him on that? I don't know. That's a legal question. I doubt it. So even if it's correct that it was removed because of legislature bringing it to it, which you've said it is not at the state level, we are bringing this forth at the local level and then proceed to the county level and then upward. This is a grassroots effort. We shouldn't even have to do this, yet those at the federal level seem to think that they can step on our Second Amendment rights. So for those who think they can step on those, this resolution is not. So for those who think the resolution is not necessary because we currently have laws, think again. This resolution lets the citizens of City of Hudson know that the city will not fall to unconstitutional federal or state laws infringing on our Second Amendment rights. In the future, may I suggest, if someone is going to be presenting and that agenda item is taken off, could you send them a courtesy email so that they're not showing up for no reason? We also have a great start of a petition from citizens that we're not done gathering for that support this resolution, and when we are all done, we'd be welcome to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Any other comments?
My name is Marion Shaw from the town of Hudson.
Resident of the city of Hudson.
And as I researched open meeting laws today, the subject came up about residents versus non-residents. And according to open meeting laws, non-residents are allowed to speak as well.
You control who speaks.
No, we have made the decision here a long time ago, Marion, that we're only allowing residents of the city of Hudson. That was put in practice probably a year ago. Certainly, we had some Zoom meetings, and I know there was frustration at the time, but that was something that we had decided more than a year ago. So we are not allowing comments from non-citizens of the city of Hudson. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Carol Ivans. I live at 613 Knollwood Drive here in Hudson. Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, I'd like to say that I believe it's unconstitutional for the city council or any government body to make a rule that the citizens can't comment on agenda items. We have the right to free speech. You don't have the right to limit it. I don't care what other city councils do, and I guess the same would go for the rule that that gentleman was talking about. Maybe you've made the rules, but it's not constitutional as far as I understand the Constitution. And what other city councils do or what you've decided to do doesn't affect it, but our Constitution does affect it. And the administrator's not local, so why no public comment? Having this balance of you guys can do whatever you want and then we just have to follow your rules doesn't sit well. Secondly, we have no patience for time-wasting shenanigans. We would like you to put 2A on the agenda, and we are not okay with flimsy excuses, and we're not okay with this idea that, well, it's non-binding, so it's not important. Like Beth said, maybe it's non-binding, but it tells us that you are willing to support your oath of office, and you are willing to support the Constitution, and you are willing to stand for us if push comes to shove. And it certainly looks like the federal and the state will be pushing and shoving quite a bit. And also, it affects you and your children too. Don't think that because you're city officials, that when they come for us, they won't also come for you. They certainly did in Nazi Germany. The Bolsheviks lined up the people that put them in power and shot them, and all kinds of other things. If you're not interested in standing for our Constitution, I'm not sure why you ran for office. So we would greatly appreciate it if you would stand for us, if you would stand for the Constitution, if you would stand for the oath of office that you took. And I also want to say, no matter how long it takes, truth always wins in the end. It might take a while. It might You know, all of us might go down fighting. Our founding fathers, an awful lot of them did. But I'm very glad that they stood. I'm glad for all the people who have stood since them and fought our wars, and a lot of them have died too. And like Patrick Henry said, we don't want to be slaves. We'd rather die. I certainly hope it doesn't come to that, but this is a very simple thing, this two-way, to say that, yes, you support the resolution. So please put it on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments? Mary Claire?
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mayor and City Council members. It's great to see you in person. It's been a long time. So thank you for this opportunity to give you a brief chamber update. So I'm Mary Claire Olson-Potter, President of the Chamber, and I'm here tonight just for a few updates. First of all, I want to thank you for your leadership the past 18 months. This has been a time that none of us had any training or being able to prepare for. And we know that it's been challenging for businesses in the community, but I think working together, we made it through. And businesses will be working out of this pandemic for a long time. As you know, there are hiring challenges, supply chain issues, and inflation concerns forthcoming. So as we move forward, we know that Hudson is full of fun for the whole family, lots of celebrations and different events taking place. And we're promoting things that you can do here in Hudson, and then we're also following the CDC guidelines and adjusting as need be. I want to give a congratulations and a thank you to the Booster Club for the great event that they put on, and to the city for the great fireworks. We know that by the number of calls that we fielded the weeks prior to Booster Days, that folks were excited to come back and have that event. And just a quick update, we have Riverfest that kicks off tomorrow. Yellowstone Trail Days is the end of July. August 14th will feature the Phipps Fest concert, and then followed by the North Hudson Pepper Fest, August 20th through the 22nd. Spirit of St. Croix, September 25th through the 26th in Lakefront Park, followed by the Hudson Community Expo on October 10th, and the Hudson Community Pumpkin Party on the 16th of October. So then we're going to dive right into the holidays, and the Tour of Homes will be the 19th through the 21st of November. And then we'll have a Hudson holiday. We are excited to welcome the 3rd annual Buena Vista, a stroll in the park. Thanks to the city's support and other sponsors, we're going to do our 3rd year of Lights in the Park. I'm still waiting to see when that movie premiere will be, so I will keep you posted on that with the 2 movies that were filmed in Hudson last year. And then we'll have Light Up Night then on November 26th, Candlelight Stroll on the 3rd, and Santa and Critters in Lakefront Park on December 5th. I know that or 4th. That all seems far away, but it's going to be here before you know it. So, and we're also working with the Hudson School District on Manufacturers Day. That's going to be October 1st, where we will tour with 9th through 12th graders through a variety of manufacturing companies so that they can learn about the job and career opportunities right here in Hudson, and hopefully have some of them move into some of those jobs. And as workforce development continues to be a top priority for the Chamber, that also comes with the need for transportation and workforce housing too, so working on those issues. So on behalf of the Hudson Chamber, thank you for your partnership, and I look forward to our continued work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Claire. Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda. Consent agenda.
Approve the meeting minutes from the June 21st, 2021 regular council meeting. Approve claims in the amount of $607,692.30. Approve operators as listed on the list sheet. Approve taxicab license and taxicab drivers on the list sheet. Discussion and possible action on spending the CIP fund for sound dampening solutions in the police department interview rooms. Approval of an easement for 1427 Lee Circle for Darwin and Lois Hoopert. Approve the car show on the Dyke Road. Approve the Taste of Hudson 2021 event. Approve the Eagle Scout project proposed by Jacob Cutterly. Thank you. Approve the bid received by Zappa Brothers in the amount of $134,305 for the 2021 storm sewer repair project.
Just one second. I would like to pull the Scout project.
Okay. Approve the quote received from T2 Engineering in the amount of $5,800 to prepare the plans and specifications for the replacement of the chiller at 700 First Street. Discussion and possible action on the purchase of 2 GPS units for the police department. Approve proposed bond amount of $98.80 for section 235-9 truck routes of the City of Hudson's municipal ordinances. And approve removal of special assessment for 201 Pine Street from Second Street sidewalk replacement.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second to approve consent agenda. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Alms?
Yes.
DeZiel?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Brooke?
yes,
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved, consent agenda's approved. I pulled the Scout project by Jacob Cutterly because I don't want to see this on the consent agenda without Jake, having an opportunity to come forward and explain this to us, because I think it's a fantastic project. So Jake, it's all you, buddy.
Hi there. So you just want me to go over just kind of what I'm doing?
Yep, please.
Yeah, so my name is Jacob Cutterly, and I am a local Eagle Scout with Troop 140, and it has come time for me to do my Eagle project. So what I've proposed is a trailhead map in Lakefront Park downtown at the where the little gravel parking lot is coming down off of St. Croix Street. And so, excuse me. In the, yes, let's see. Sorry.
Take your time.
In speaking with,
Mike Moraz?
yeah, sorry, I'm kind
Parks
of,
Department, or Public Works Parks, yep.
yeah, we kind of decided on making something that looks similar to this image. I know it's kind of hard to see from up here, and it's a pretty bad print, but it will kind of outline the trails going through Lakefront Park downtown, and
You want to hand it to Joyce, and then she'll pass it around?
yeah.
It's the picture that's in our
Yep.
packet.
And then it'll be all set in concrete for easy maintenance, as well as the bike repair station that will be relocated from the kind of little beach with the beach house, where that little bike repair station is. It'll be relocated and set in concrete because it'll get more use at the trailhead for bikers.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think it'll be a great service to community members who use that park downtown all the time.
Excellent. I think it's a great project. I appreciate and applaud you thinking of such a worthwhile project for the city. I think it's great, and
Yeah.
obviously, maybe not so obviously, but if anybody paid attention in the past, they know that I'm a great supporter of the Eagle Scouts, as I'm sure the entire council is, and so we applaud you on this project, and
Thank you
wish
so
you
much.
good luck with it.
The only question I would ask is how easy is it, or is it updatable? Can we update this map easily as we expand our
Yeah,
trail
so
system?
the design I'm designing and kind of envisioning kind of has, so we're doing a plastic kind of polycarbonate map, so it's weather resistant, and then it'll be kind of just attached to the frame so that in the future, if you do want to update it, you can remove the existing polycarbonate piece and put on a new one, if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, I think the importance and ease of doing that, will that artwork or graphics work exist somewhere where we will have access to that?
Yeah, so in speaking with Mike Moraz, he said that the city would print and provide that piece, the polycarbonate piece. So I'm building kind of the shell around it, and it, for easy maintenance, it will be set in a concrete
So it's
slab.
on us. All right.
I am sourcing all the other materials.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Thank you so much.
Come on up here a second, Jake. Hudson pen.
Thank you.
All right, discussion and possible action on creation of a diversity committee.
So the council has talked about this over a number of meetings. We formed a kind of a council subcommittee at the last meeting of council members Hall, DeZiel, and Alms to take a look at some ideas. Councilmember DeZiel had kind of put together some basic framework, and then we also took a look at some diversity committee and the like examples from other cities. And so with that, the group put together what's in the packet, which it's sort of just like a kind of a broad guideline in policy. It lays out the broader ideas and objectives of the committee, but the subcommittee that put this together did not want to focus too much detail on it because they wanted to give the committee a chance to, work within a broader framework and kind of lay out what their actual activities would be and things like that. So what this does is sort of lays out the committee, the mission, their vision and goals, and then most importantly, it also talks about the committee membership. And so the committee membership, basically what we have, how we have it laid out is that each council member and the mayor get to appoint one person from the ward they represent, or in the mayor's case, from citywide. And then we'd also have 2 more appointments that would be done as we do with all of our committee appointments on an at-large basis. And so that would be a 9-member committee ultimately. And so this is, kind of what we've come up with. And then the question would be for the councils, if you want to proceed, it would be to approve this document and then go ahead and give staff the okay to start advertising and then letting council members, submit their nominate or their appointments and things like that moving forward. So
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on amending Chapter 145-17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Hudson regarding operator's license.
So with this, there was, at the state level, they amended it, I don't remember what the state statute was, it's in the, to allow, council can allow staff members that are designated to process the operator license, the background checks, everything would be, the process would still be the same. It would just speed up the process with the operators not having to wait till the next council to get approved and get them working sooner and faster in a more timely fashion. So with this amendment, it would allow city clerk, staff, or who is appointed to approve, and it would not come to the council on the agenda each week.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Discussion?
I like the idea a lot, sorry. Go ahead, Rick.
Actually, I need to suspend the rules, I
Yeah.
think.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I'll second that too.
Motion and second to suspend the rules. Roll call?
Morissette?
Yes.
Alms?
Yes.
DeZiel?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Now I would move to adopt 145-17.
Second.
Motion is second to approve.
Just a quick question where it says designates the city clerk or his or her designee to issue operator's license. Could we just put in there somewhere, it has to be a Hudson city staff person? Because the way it was worded, I didn't know if the clerk could appoint like Uncle Fred or something like that. You know what I mean? I think it just has to be tighter so that we know it's, I know that's implied, but I don't think it's in the
Uncle Fred might
in the
live here.
language, so. Does that make sense, Nick, at all?
It does, and that language is in there to, contemplates assistant city clerk or somebody else in the office.
Right, I think it's implied, but it's not explicit, so if we can just add that, I'd be more comfortable.
Is that good,
with it.
Randy, Bill?
I'm fine.
Okay. Anybody else?
Is there, all right, is there a process for, all right, so let's say that someone's application was turned down, do they still appeal to the council?
Yes, that process would stay the same.
Okay.
Anything else? Anybody? All right, we have a motion, a second as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Approve the utility bill insert policy.
I don't see anybody here from the utility
well,
department, but
I can take it.
if you want to kick it off, that'd be
Yeah.
good, then I have some comments on it, so.
Okay. So the Public Utility Commission approved this, this policy, and we're asking that the council approve it so that it's an official city policy.
I don't agree with it. I think it's a bunch of hoo-ha, and I think this council has the obligation and the right to use that as they feel free. In particular case, this case, the mayor has the authority to use it. And I think you guys are just doing some political grandstanding on the issue, and I think it's disgusting, along with the next item as well.
I guess my comment on it is that I wasn't consulted about the policy. I didn't see it until it showed up in their packet myself. I don't think myself, I do not think the policy is necessary. Things like this have to get cleared through staff. This issue, when it was brought forward, I cleared it. The utility director and their staff questioned it with me. I approved it through their, I mean, my role as administrator in some of these situations is to make sure that, when we do things like this, that they're appropriate. But to have everything that comes through to get approved and run through the utility commission and then the council for those sort of things, I think that's outside the reach of what the utility commission role is at this point. And in my opinion, it's a staff decision. And if there's a question on it that I don't feel comfortable approving, I will bring it to the council for discussion and approval on it. But I don't think this policy, myself, I feel like it's overstepping on what the utility commission role should be. And honestly, it's what staff and my role should be in looking at this. And my role is to determine if I don't think it's appropriate or if I think it's questionable, that to bring it to the council. And you will ultimately make that decision. But if I think it does comply with, what would be an acceptable use of it, that I should be able to sign off on that and give that approval. That's just my opinion on it.
I would agree that the Public Utility Commission doesn't have any real part in this. That is a staff and council decision, not the commission.
I'll move we deny the policy.
Second.
Motion is second to deny. Discussion?
I guess so. Is the only question I would ask is then, citizen X wants to put something in the utility bill. So let's just play this out. They would come to you or the city and say, I want to put this in the utility bill.
Right.
And then what you're saying, Aaron, if I understand correctly, is you'd say, well, is that, appropriate? Is that what the city should be sponsoring it? If you have a question, you bring it to council. If it's like, oh, this is great, we're gonna go for it.
If I feel it would be appropriate, yes. I honestly can't think of many
Right.
citizen-driven situations where it would be.
Right.
I have to say that when you look back at what's been put in our utility bill, it's generally staff or somehow city-driven. So it's the surveys for the comprehensive plan. It's things like that.
Right.
It's notifications about something going on in the city that we're generating.
Right.
It's promotion of the Golden Rule initiative from the mayor, that sort of thing. I know in my tenure that we've never done anything that's a citizen sort of requested thing.
Right, and the reason I'm
So
asking.
I would be very hard pressed to think of one that I would sign off on, and that's
Okay.
outside of the city.
I'm just trying to clarify that because I know there's some people that have kind of bent my ear and said, this is what we want to do kind of thing. So I think I'm comfortable with the staff kind of weeding some of that out. And I understand where this is coming from, but if you're comfortable, Aaron, I think we have to trust our city administrator, so.
And I would just add to that, from a legal perspective, the utility's job is to run the utility, right? And some of these messaging issues, I mean, as Aaron said, there's information that goes in from the city, and if the policy changes so that the city then has to bounce to the PUC and back to the city, it becomes cumbersome, it becomes unwieldy, but it gets away from the job of the commission, which is to run the utility, which I think is probably where you want the focus of the utility, is on running the actual, or the commission isn't actually running the utility, as opposed to having the discussion, which is, what can go in those bills. Billing is a city function, and Aaron's described it well.
Nick, I had a question about the utility. Just a thought. The city is not obligated to have a utility, is it? It could be run by the Public Works Department. Is that correct?
It's not given its size, the city is not obligated to have a commission. It's obligated to have the utility.
Right.
But it's
But a
not
commission.
obligated to have the commission.
That's what I
correct.
meant.
Yeah, by statute.
Thank you.
I disagree here, and one of the issues that was discussed is that some of every municipality has different ideas on what is appropriate to go into these utility bills. Some of them are putting advertising in for things like the booster days, and I think that it is appropriate. The billing is coming, is through the Public Utilities Commission, and the Public Utilities Commission should have a say on what's going on with the billing. So I believe that the Public Utilities Commission should have a say, so that we don't have things that we would prefer not to have in those bills.
I'd like to call the question.
All right. Question's been called. Is there a second?
Does that mean he wants to vote? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a second on calling the question? Okay, we got a motion, and a second to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Question's been called. The motion and second is to deny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on use of city resources.
So, first of all, I want to make sure that, I fully support the Golden Rule Initiative and want it to be successful. After all, how can anyone oppose efforts to promote civility? But I want the council to approve the use of city resources before they are used to promote non-city initiatives, to be sure all requests are handled appropriately and we aren't opening the doors for inappropriate requests. So city resources would be the utility bill messages and inserts, the city website, city social media, Facebook and others as added, and city newsletters. All above are communications, therefore we need a communications approval process and a policy that includes, for example, sustainability. Electronic communications should save paper, but also they allow us to track open rates, which is really important. We should have, the policy should include low costs, also city business only, and no promotion of a viewpoint that's not supported by the majority of the council. So the city administrator should make most of the decisions about the website content. However, issues related to the city's mission and value statement and branding decisions should be made by the full council with input from the residents and business owners through a public hearing. So for example, the banner on the website declaring Hudson a Golden Rule City, I do agree that with the commenter from last time that this is a branding statement and should be vetted to make sure it matches the city's mission and values and is supported by city residents and other stakeholders. Branding should be done as part of the strategic plan. So social media should have similar rules as far as their use, and same with newsletters. Newsletters should be posted to the website and to social media, and then sent by email to the people who request them. So I will make the motion to direct city staff to put together a draft policy for discussion and possible action at our next meeting.
What's the, excuse me, what's the action, what's the policy on? Is it communication or what?
Yes, it would be on communications.
Okay.
I'll second for purposes of discussion.
All right, we have a motion and a second in front of us. Discussion? Anybody?
So.
You know, if I might,
Yeah.
this has been going on for quite some time, Joyce. You know, this wouldn't be here but for the fact that you have a problem with me, period.
No.
Yeah, yes. And I think that we need to get over this. You know, we need to be working together. It's very clear that every opportunity you have, you take a shot at me. I'm all for the golden rule, but, I love the golden rule. I think it's a great thing, but, there's always a but, and it's always about me. And that's why this is here. And I think everybody here knows it. And I think we need to move beyond this.
And I don't think it's appropriate for you to brand the city as a golden rule city
Well-
when this is not even a citywide initiative.
Joyce, I haven't done anything on my own. I've always, anything that I have done, I have sought advice on, counsel on, to make sure that it is within the parameters and the purview of the office of the mayor. And what you're talking about right now is the integrity of the office of the mayor itself. But you want to talk about that because you don't like me. That's the reason. And I think that we just need to acknowledge that, and we need to just move on.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree.
It's embarrassing, Joyce, these things that you keep bringing up to the mayor's office, not Rich himself. I mean, you're trying to brand it in your own way.
No, I'm not trying to brand it.
You've got a whole list there, and quite frankly, I'd question whether you wrote what you just read.
I wrote every word.
I'm actually objecting to this discussion. It's not appropriate here to start attacking each other. So that really needs to end right
I
here.
have my right to free speech, Mr. Weber. And if I see
I don't
something
know
like that.
if you read anything that's in the municipality magazine, which is kind of a guide for us, it talks about appropriate behavior, and this is not appropriate.
Well, no, it's my opinion.
Well, and just to jump in, besides these other parts, the mayor is correct that I have signed off on anything that has occurred. Looking at it in the picture of, is this the mayor's initiative? And would that then make it appropriate to do? And there have been things that we've discussed where I've said, no, we can't do that unless you want to, seek broader approval for it. I mean, we've had those conversations on some different items. But I agree. I mean, it's not that the mayor has just told me we're doing this. We've had the conversation, and I have said, yes, this fits within an initiative that the mayor is doing. And again, since that point too, the council had this conversation. The council did talk about the golden rule. It was brought up at a meeting. The council did discuss it, and no action was taken other than the general conversation that this is a mayor's initiative, and the mayor basically may proceed with it. And so that's how I have been operating, under since that. And I think that everything that's been done has, like I said, I have signed off with that, knowing that it fits within that, but at the same time, looking at the guidelines of, is this going to be an expense to the city? That's an unbudgeted expense. Is this going to be a use, a cost use of city resources and things like that? So I take that into account with every item that we've discussed with that, and I've okayed all the items that have gone forward from that. But again, the council had this conversation. If they felt differently and they made a different motion, of course, that would change how that goes and how my decisions would be on these sort of things. But that was, I'm basing it off the conversation the council had and the approval that, the council, basically gave by saying this is a mayor's initiative and offering up the support and not doing something different. And so, with that, I agree that there can definitely be political things that come up with councils. It's a political body, regardless of how you look at it. But I definitely agree that we need to work together. We're in a community with so many positive things going on. I have come from communities that aren't as lucky. They have a lot of, large issues, huge issues that we are not dealing with. We have a wonderful community. We have so many positive things that are occurring. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have things that we need to address. We clearly know that. But I would like to see this council trying to be focused on, how do we keep moving these positive things forward in this community? It's a wonderful community. And I think I want to help you however I can to focus together on how we can kind of move that forward. It's not to say you can't have differences. I fully appreciate your differences, and we should talk about our differences, and we should work those through. But I do hope that they're on a broader policy level, and they're not just individual differences or even groups and smaller groups differences that are overtaking some of these conversations.
Aaron and crew, I'm sad I can't be there in person tonight, but I just wanted to say, in my opinion, something that has changed since the initial conversation is that we've heard from more and more of our residents that they have some concerns and that they would like to see this be a council initiative. And so, I know I'm coming a little late to the game and wasn't there for the initial discussion, but I think that's what I've heard from people. And I don't know if that's maybe part of what Joyce is referring to as well, but just wanting to make sure that we're representing the people that have us here, and that would like to see this go beyond just the mayor and have it be more of a city initiative. That's what I have heard.
Thank you, Sarah. I agree.
My thoughts are that I agree with Jim, I'm not real comfortable with kind of the personal attacks happening tonight, and I don't think there's a place for that. What I want to do is I want to keep us thinking about policy. And so I guess the question would be, for Joyce and for all of us, I think, we can talk about branding for the city. There's nothing that's keeping any of us from saying, let's have a discussion about branding of the city, and do we want to use the golden rule, or is there another direction you want to go? I mean, that's a conversation that can take place. I think I'm trying to figure out ways to move forward. I think the communication piece you bring up is really important, so I understand where you're coming from with that, especially with the potential newsletter that I know you were talking about in a previous meeting. And part of it, I'm thinking, is going to be Aaron's role as city administrator. I'm guessing. I don't know the details of the communication. So I guess what I'm trying to encourage us to do is not go after people, not make it about us. Let's make it about policy. Let's make it about moving forward. And I think, so I think if you want to talk about branding, if somebody wants to bring up, should we adopt the golden rule? That's all great. We can move forward, but I don't want us to keep looking back, because I just think that's not helpful,
So I want to butt in here for just a moment. I don't know if you're considering my comments as an attack, because it certainly wasn't. It's a statement of fact. It's undeniable statement of fact. And I was not casting aspersions on anyone or their integrity. I was just saying it's time to move on.
But you expressed it in such a way that it was insulting. And Randy, it was very insulting for you to tell me that I didn't write this. This is a problem that we need to address beyond the communication problem. But anyway,
if I could speak from a personal perspective, you and I had our differences 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago maybe. And we got through that, and we can work together, and we can talk to each other. And,
right. Got a great relationship.
Yeah. So it needs to happen. Whether you agree politically or not, we need to be able to work together. And we see what's going on in our country because we can't do that.
That's right, and that's the whole point.
Mm-hmm. We got to get
The
past
initiative.
this.
Thanks, Jim. Anybody else?
In any other communities that you served in as administrator, who has a purview over marketing communications to the community?
A community of our size, it's actually unusual that you have anybody that's doing, usually you have to contract out somebody if you want to re-image your city or, come up with a new logo, that sort of thing. You don't often see a community of our size that has a person that can do, you're just not big enough. You can't justify that. Now, in larger cities, you actually have staff that do it. But again, those are things that usually come from a larger directive of, from the council or whoever it might be, that we want to see a new look for the city, new logo, new whatever, vision statement, whatever it might be. But in a case like ours, it's, we we don't have a marketer on staff. You know, we don't have somebody on staff that's gonna be able to reimagine a logo and you know, whatever. We do what we can, you know, as we can, and honestly, we don't do a lot with it. I mean, let's be very honest. We don't do a lot with the marketing side of things like that, or the branding side even. So it's not something that you just commonly see. It's usually, if it's done in a community of our size, it's part of a broader initiative that generally is involving a third party that's helping the city through it, the council through it.
Sure.
You know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, don't mean to butt in there, but I just want to say, you know, after COVID, during COVID, right, everything that's happening from national, I just want to thank the mayor for taking the initiative with the golden rule, because I think that is at the root of everything, is bringing everybody together. And I think that's a start of it. And personally, I'd like to hear an update of what the golden rule is. And I would like to see us adopt something from a city as a city council to support it. I know there's a motion on the floor right now, but that's just my feeling on it.
All right, so.
I'm sorry, again,
No, that's how you have to do it, Sarah.
Can I just ask why, is there hesitancy to transition, since we've heard from residents that they would like to see this be an initiative that the council is part of? Is that even a viable option to change and go that direction?
I don't know who you're asking. It was a mayor's initiative, and frankly, I kept it. I wanted it a mayor's initiative to keep politics out of it. I did not want to see, and there were a number of people that I'm sure you've heard from, Sarah, as well as I, that would like to see it a city initiative because they want to inject their political viewpoint into this. And because this was my idea to bring this forward as an initiative, I reject a lot of some of the political aspects that people want to bring into this. So, and I think that we've been able to successfully do that. As I said at the outset, it is something that I think I would like to see the city take over, and probably sometime toward the end of the year, after the first of the year, because I think it is important. This transcends me. This is not about me. This transcends me. This is about our city. It's about the office of the mayor and what the mayor has the ability to do. If anybody here thinks that the mayor has overstepped his boundaries, please blurt it out, because I haven't. And once again, we know why this is here. I mean, this isn't about, you know, we need to have some type of policy on marketing and branding because it's out of control. It's only here for one reason, and that's it. So I would say, let's, at least at this point, not approve this motion. I think everything is working just fine. If anybody at any point would like to say, we don't want the masthead of our website to be Hudson, a Golden Rule City, make that motion. It's pretty simple.
Rich, can you?
If you want to undo that, make that motion.
Okay.
So at some point, and I will give an update, Bill, I appreciate the opportunity to do that. I would like the city to take this over, because it's not just going to be my initiative in the future. I'm not going to be here forever, right? For much longer, probably. And I want it to be a city initiative because I believe in it 100%. It's important. And years ago, Jim, I heard you say, you know, it's all about the golden rule, right? We really need to get back to the golden rule. And that's a fact. That's true. And with the things that we have coming up that, you know, when we get to the end of the agenda, I'll talk about. Appreciate the opportunity to bring that up, Bill. I think you'll see that the community is embracing this, and it's an important thing for us to do, and it's an important legacy for the people of the city of Hudson.
Mayor, can you explain who's on that committee? Get a better sense of picture of who's on it?
Sure. We have a representative from the morning Rotary, Daybreak Rotary, a representative from the noon Rotary, a representative from the Kiwanis Club, a representative from the Lions Club, representative from the library, representative from the YMCA, a representative from Youth Action Hudson, a representative from the Boy Scouts of America, a representative from the Ministerial Alliance, a representative from the school district, and I'm sure I've missed somebody along the way, but these are great people that are doing great things right now that believe wholeheartedly in this initiative. And I appreciate the question.
Well, it's a
Randy.
pretty
Thank you.
impressive group of people that are working on behalf of the city to make it a more welcoming place.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right, we have a motion and second in front of us.
Can you repeat the motion? Because
It was to direct city staff to put together a draft policy for discussion and possible action at our next meeting.
and it's a policy on
Communications.
communication. Okay, I'm just trying to understand what the language is.
Once again, I don't think a need has been expressed here at all. We haven't seen anything out of control here. So, have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion is not approved.
Okay, then I would like to request that the city develop a mission and value statement and decide on some branding, whether that is something that,
Okay, well, that is not on the agenda.
no, I understand that, so I'd like that for future agenda, please.
Okay. All right. Discussion and possible action on infrastructure management and plan financing.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dean.
It's hard to follow that up, sorry. I'm just going to share a presentation here, which you guys have in your agenda packet, but just for anybody following along at home, hopefully, there we go. All right, so this presentation is kind of a follow-up from, it was sometime in May that I gave the initial part of the presentation about the state of our infrastructure. And just a very quick synopsis, the conclusion was that we are in a big hole as far as infrastructure goes. I've estimated that to be $127 million. Obviously, that's not going to, we're not going to come out of that immediately, but we need a plan in place to move forward and start to get out of that. So our average funding for the last 5 years has been about $1.3 million, and that will take a long time to get out of our infrastructure hole. So where do we go? So talking about types of funding, there are a number of different puzzle pieces that we can use to put together the puzzle of our funding for infrastructure. A lot of everybody is familiar with bonding. That's very common and how we've been doing things for a long time, and also special assessments, which we have utilized as a city in the past. There's a couple new pieces that I'll be explaining tonight. One is a transportation utility, and the other is a wheel tax. This would kind of all work in concert to fund our infrastructure needs. My wonderful Venn diagram here, the engineers love the Venn diagrams, kind of where that arrow is pointing is kind of where staff is proposing that we move forward with. So the biggest question mark or wild card or whatever in this mix and match type of funding is kind of the transportation utility, because it's fairly new to Wisconsin. What is it? It's essentially an amount charged to each property in the city based on two components, trip generation, which is the amount of traffic each property generates, and a base access fee. So if you think about a water utility, it's kind of set up in a similar way, where you're charging people for the amount of water they're using. That's measured on a per cubic foot basis, and then also the availability charge. So that pays for the water treatment plant, that pays for the water mains that gets the water to your house, and then in order for you to be able to use it. So in the transportation utility world, essentially what that equates to, the availability charge would be how does traffic get, say, off Interstate 94, uses our arterials and our collectors and our local streets to get to your house, and then the trip charge is based on essentially how much are you using the infrastructure. So that's the quick synopsis of how it works. So, and I'll also say that the trip generation is based off of national studies of trip generation all over the country per type of property. Lots of studies, very industry, the transportation industry has put these studies together. It's an aggregate of a whole bunch of stuff from all over the country. So, so that we're measuring things as everybody else would, and on a similar footing as everybody else. So, some pros of the transportation utility is it's stable. It's once you get it set up, it's doesn't have significant administration costs. Benefits residences the most compared to, say, a special assessment, which really a lot of residents, it's hard for somebody to pay an assessment for a project. Kind of as the philosophy of tying highest traffic generators to the most cost to, you know, the people who use our system the most pay the most. It kind of makes sense in my mind anyway. It also captures more of the impact of non-resident traffic on our city streets. So that means, so somebody who's living in maybe the town of Hudson or in Village of North Hudson or whoever that uses our streets to go to the grocery store or go fill up their gas at Quick Trip or go wherever, shop downtown, you know, something like that. We're able to capture some of that traffic from people out of town and use it to keep up our infrastructure so that they're able to keep using our businesses and stuff. Cons would be significant costs to high traffic generators compared to special assessments, and then the startup effort is a lot of work. And so how we're funding projects right now, it's approximately 10% special assessments and approximately 90% bonding, plus or minus depending on the project. Plus, we have been relying a lot on outside funding sources such as federal grants, like say for the Vine Street project we just completed in 2019. And how we're looking to, or proposing to, I should say, fund our transportation system would be a combination of transportation utility, bonding, and a wheel tax. I haven't explained the wheel tax yet. That is essentially a amount of money that's charged annually for people when they renew their tabs each year. So it's essentially, say it's $20 that for each vehicle that somebody registers in the city of Hudson, they would pay $20 annually to contribute for infrastructure upkeep. So the funding levels, you can kind of see what staff has proposed for the next few years. So 2022 essentially would keep current CIP levels for bonding, and then add the transportation utility and wheel tax on top of it. And then it would grow that amount that we'd be spending on infrastructure over time, and have that additional amount be covered by bonding initially. And after a certain period of time, we would want to then allow the transportation utility to potentially grow. And we would come back essentially every year, every other year to update everybody and get everybody on the same page as if, is this the route we want to go? You know, say every 2 years when we do the bonding, to just kind of re-up, you know, is this the way we're going? So it's not, you know, set it now, put it on autopilot for 30 years or something like that. It's a regular occurrence that we would be looking to update this.
So is this taking out the special assessments for the sidewalks and the curb and gutter and the
Yes.
driveways?
So what we are proposing is to get rid of special assessments. So special assessments, as I showed here, we're only generating approximately 10% of project costs due to special assessments, and really that 10% takes a lot of staff time and effort, and also acrimony, you know, from the public who comes in and talks about special assessments, you know, very honestly in a lot of cases, to say that somebody who's on a fixed income can't afford to spend $2,000 on a whatever project or at one time, you know, and then, or they have to pay interest over a period of time.
So then you're proposing that new sidewalks would be paid for by the city rather than by the property owner?
Correct. All these details would need to be worked out but that,
Okay.
at this point in time, that's what we're looking for. So with this funding split, funding levels, here's what we could do from 2022 to 2027. This is not, I'm not going to go through all these projects or whatever, but it's just to show you essentially what that funding level does is it allows us to maintain our busier streets in town more adequately than we have been to this point. There's obviously lots of questions about how much is this going to cost somebody. So the staff has proposed to start the transportation utility at 1/2 cent per round trip generated plus a $120 a year basic access charge. So the first component would be essentially, how many trips are each property generating, like you're paying for your cubic feet of water, and then the second part is the availability charge, essentially. So typical annual cost for this amount would be plus a $20 per vehicle wheel tax for various property types. So it'd be about $170 for an average single-family residential with 2 cars. Once you start getting into higher trip generations, obviously they pay more because they're generating more traffic. So it goes up to essentially about $5,000 for the big box retail store as we currently have it set up. Obviously all these rates are subject to change, and we are, like I'll explain in just a minute, we'll be going through a process with the community and with you to understand if, first of all, if this is something that we want to pursue, and secondly, what that rate is that we want to start at. So we'd also look to not charge the school district because they're a taxing entity that would be very difficult to have them suddenly switch gears to be paying a fair amount of money into our transportation system that they would have to then recover from their constituents. And
County?
The county is still in here. We've proposed to keep the county in at this time. So that's to be determined, I guess, with discussion. So with the proposed plan, like I said, we would be able to maintain our arterial streets a lot better than what we are doing right now, and then minor streets we would be looking to they would continue to deteriorate unless more funding becomes available. So moving forward with public engagement, so what we're looking to do after this meeting is, assuming we want to move forward with this, we would hold neighborhood meetings to present the need for additional funding and alternatives for funding, just to kind of help the public to understand why we're doing this, first of all. So be explaining the need, essentially, and then why we're looking to do what we're proposing to do with this, and then get the public kind of momentum going for hopefully implementing something in the future. Obviously, we receive feedback from the public for future discussion at City Council, and then moving forward, we bring this back to City Council. There would obviously be a lot of to be determined, what are we going to set the rate at? Are we going to use the transportation utility? Are we going to use the wheel tax? All that kind of stuff. That's not to be decided tonight. It's just kind of, this is introducing and moving forward with the discussion. And then whatever the program is that is adopted by City Council, we would hope to implement and adopt that this winter or into next year. So with that, any questions, thoughts, or concerns?
Can we bounce to the next page quick, just so we can show them? We had a couple things at the end there. Or did you not have those on yours?
I don't have.
They were in the packet, the debt service. And
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's not on the presentation.
okay,
but I
so
can-
one more thing just as we go here. I mean, obviously this is, there's an expense involved with what's being proposed. Not only are we adding a new transportation utility, which on a normal single-family home is $170 a year. On a big box, you're talking $5,000 a year, and then you can kind of go in between depending on what type of business and traffic it is. But excuse me, what also is being proposed is that we're increasing our debt service fairly significantly as well to help bring the levels up to the funding levels that will hopefully be able to better address our needs. So that's what that page after the question and thoughts in the packet talks about, is we show what our new debt service will be. And I want to just be really clear when you look at that, that's the debt service just based on this new debt, not counting any of our existing debt, not counting any new debt that we'll do in our normal 2-year bonding cycle for our usual just kind of CIP sort of work, any new facilities, anything like that. This is just strictly the debt related to what was presented tonight. So I don't want you to think that if you look at this, because if you review this by the year 2028, we've basically added $580,000 a year in debt service. And that, like I said, that's just standalone for this. This is not counting any other, things that we are going to have to, issue debt for. We know that we have to do every 2-year cycle. So I want you to be aware of that that cost is there, and it's very real based on this proposal. And then the last page of that just talks about, kind of what that looks like as far as impact on an average, valued property. So basically, if you have a $500,000 property, in 2024, you'd see your taxes go up just for that debt, about $18 a year. And that's, again, these are kind of rough estimates where we have to estimate the mill rate a little bit and things like that. But then by the end of what we showed here, 2028, that same $500,000 property, their tax has gone up $130 a year. So just know that as we add this debt, obviously, as we all know, the taxes go up to pay for that debt. So I just want everybody to be aware that, we wanted to include those in there so you could see the impact as you kind of evaluate this decision. But ultimately what the goal here is that this doesn't fix what Dean showed the graph. This helps us maintain our major streets, but we're still going to see a decline in almost all of our other streets still based on this new funding level. But that's our reality. And the reality is we're not alone. Pretty much every city is dealing with the same issue. And the problem is if we really want to address it the way, I think Dean would really like us to, which is what we hired Dean to do, is tell us, here's how you fix these problems and here's how you get us into a sustainable infrastructure plan. We couldn't, I shouldn't say that. I don't think the council could support what that would mean to our taxpayers to really do that. It's too big of an increase in taxes to be able to really get to that number, but we're not alone. So what we have to do is try to come up with a plan that's reasonable to stay on top of really what we need to stay on top of, and we'll keep Band-Aiding the rest, and then we'll see. Maybe there's other funding sources that come about. Maybe someday we actually get more state aid and whatever, and we can do more. But for now, we're just trying to say, hey, this is a good way at least to keep our main ones up. And it's also the way, if the council supports this, to introduce a new revenue source, 2 new revenue sources that we don't have right now. And so what we should stress with that too is that the wheel tax is more common. That's something that you see a number of counties, some cities using, that wheel tax part. The transportation utility is more unique. Dean, how many cities have it right now in Wisconsin?
There's 2 municipalities that have it adopted right now. There's probably at least a dozen who are in this process of discussing it right now.
Which cities have adopted it?
City of Neenah and the town of Buchanan, which is outside of the Fox Cities area.
Can the county and the city would they possibly both adopt a wheel tax?
The county already has one.
County already has
Oh,
one.
okay, so they already are in charge of it.
We would be doing an additional one.
Okay.
The county's wheel tax is about $10 right now per vehicle per year.
Okay.
So this is definitely something new, this transportation utility. This is not something we see a lot of, but in the state of Wisconsin, we have very limited ways to raise revenues. We're not allowed to have a local option sales tax. We're not allowed to have a lot of the things that maybe other states allow their communities to do. So, this is one of the tools that we have to generate revenue. But again, however you look at it, it is it's a fee that's going to have to be paid either by our residents or our business owners. This is what it is, but it's a way to, we think, more fairly fund our roads, because it's not just strictly based on the value of your property. It's based on the amount of vehicles that your property is bringing onto our system. So at least it's a more equitable way to generate some revenue to go right back into our roads, and that's where the proposal comes from.
Yeah, I think one of the important things is it's a fee, and it does not affect or it doesn't go against our mill rate. So that's the real advantage of that, is it still allows us to operate the rest of our business.
Jim, do you mean
However,
with the levy limit you're talking about?
Pardon?
With the levy limit, is that what you mean? It doesn't count against the levy
Right.
limit? Okay.
Yes. Thank you. The I guess the other question I have is, I notice in your graph that you show the transportation utility fee as being constant. and yet but we're increasing our borrowing. And I'm wondering if that financially makes sense. If you crank the numbers, wouldn't we be better to not be paying interest? Wouldn't it be better to take the same amount that we have to pay for interest? And I can't do the finance piece of it, but I just look at it and say, we're paying interest on this, shouldn't we take that same amount of money from the utility fee, increase the utility fee the same amount? Wouldn't we get a bigger bang for our buck? That's beyond my capability to do that, but it just.
No, I mean, it's an accurate statement that obviously, if we up that utility, then we could look at, to get to the same number, lower the debt, because those are the two main drivers, is utility and the debt are the two big revenue sources, really. So the more you put your utility, the less then we could lower that debt side. So yes, that's a possibility. When we were looking at this, what we wanted to look at is, this is something really new. And what sort of sticker shock will we cause people and businesses by doing something that's too big to start with? So we tried to go what we thought was a reasonable half cent. Let's look at that. Let's see how that goes. And as Dean said, this is not something that we want to be static. We want to do this, but as you know, every 2 years we do our CIP, we do our debt, we do our bonding, all that sort of stuff. We actually update the CIP every year, but every 2 years we issue debt, related to that CIP. We want this to continue that process of the council, this council and future councils, reviewing that rolling CIP and determining, is it the right bonding amount? Is it the right utility rate amount? If we adopt the utility, that sort of thing. So it's not that we're just saying adopt this and done, but you're right. I mean, if the council feels more comfortable with a cent and like to see the debt lower, we can run those numbers, no problem. This is all very new, and that's also why Dean said we're not asking for any answers tonight, any decisions either. This is a lot for the council to take in, and we want you to be able to look at it, maybe get some feedback, talk to Dean, talk to me, talk to whoever you want to about it, get some more info. I'm sure you might, if you have businesses in your wards, hear a few things from them if they see this. Your residents may have some opinion on it if they hear about it, that sort of thing. So we want to start the conversation, but like Dean said though too, at some point sooner than later, we'd like to know if the council is supportive of the utility or not, because if they are, it is a process to get it implemented. We do want to do the outreach. We do want to gather the input from the business owners and the citizens and things like that. So the council, when you make a final decision, will have more input in on it before you decide if this is something we want to pursue or not.
A quick thought, and we saw the pushback from the water rates. In October, it's going to be worse. This is the worst timing for it. I understand why. But at the same time, are we making enough? I mean, you can call this a fee all you want. It's a tax. We're going to be raising our taxes. That's a big pill to swallow.
We agree. We're not saying we don't agree. And like I said, in Dean's,
But you're barely making $1 million. Is it really going to get us to where we want?
No, but it starts us in a new direction of revenue. That's what we're looking at with it, is that's $1 million more than we, trust me, Dean's made this very same argument to me multiple times about $1 million is not enough. But the answer to that is that it gets us, it's $1 million more a year than we have right now for our streets, which is a huge number. I mean, that's not a small number. Now, will it get to fix everything? Of course not, but we'll never get there. Nobody will ever get there. You're never going to go to a city with perfect, whatever Pacer rating streets. It will not happen. Nobody can afford that. So what we're trying to do is diversify our revenue for it in a way that we think is equitable, because it's actually tied to the use of the infrastructure of the road, and get us going in the right direction. But it's a big number. I mean, don't get me wrong, Randy. I fully appreciate it. And the council may decide this isn't the right time, and that's okay.
Well, at the same time, Aaron, not to interrupt you, but we're looking for affordable housing because people can't even afford to live here, but even work for us. And now we're going to lay another tax or two or fee out there. Somebody has 4 cars, they're paying $80 just to use our roads.
Well, and I agree with you, Randy, that, and from the standpoint that this is regressive rather than progressive, because, I mean, you're paying the same amount whether you've got a car that's 20 years old that barely runs versus a brand-new SUV. And However, then we've got to come up with something, something better, a better way of paying for this. The issue that I see is, at the state level, there isn't any help for us with the roads, and then, a big part of our property taxes is the school district, and there isn't enough help from the state with the school district. So we've got to put some pressure on our state legislature to do something about that. Yeah, I'm thinking this is probably about the best we're going to be able to do.
Yeah, I don't, the difference between a new car and an old car and how much effect they have on our roads that's an immaterial argument.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make you different. It's not regressive. You got a car, you're driving it on the roads, you pay for it. So that's the deal. If you don't have that car registered, you don't pay.
I also mentioned too with with the special assessments going away, paying $170 annually and spreading that out over a long period of time, whatever that period of time is, versus getting hammered with a $2,000 assessment
Exactly.
just for repaving your street.
That's what it cost me 2 years ago for Grandview.
Right.
And I'm not the only person that drives on Grandview.
So as staff, in considering this, we were trying to consider, income limited people, and right now our system is not set up for accommodating income limited people.
Yeah, I understand
very
that.
well, and
So would this be, this is a utility, would this be billed separately, or would this be put with the utility bills and paid quarterly, or how would this be done?
Yep. So generally in the places that I've done this, they have, you pay it on your utility bill like you would water and sewer.
Okay,
that
so
kind
then
of
it would
thing.
get.
So it'd be quarterly.
So it would get divided into 4 pieces rather than all at
Right.
once at
Yep,
the end
not
of the
all
year.
at once, exactly.
Mhm.
Yep.
And the wheel tax is collected by the state.
Yeah.
Wheel tax is
At
collected.
registration.
Yes. So if we, just for example, charge $20 per vehicle per year for wheel tax, the state administers that, and they actually take a chunk out of it to administer it.
What percentage?
I
you know?
actually don't even
17.
know. 17%?
17%.
Oh.
So, for whatever that's worth. It's not quite $20 that you would get back
Yeah.
for us, so.
18.
Yeah. So anyway, so really what we're hoping to move forward with is just essentially the conversation. And that's what I wanted to kind of get to tonight is what's the next steps for the conversation? We do want to bring this to the public with your feedback, to shape that, what that conversation looks like. And
So what
how
motion
to-
are you looking for, Dean?
I don't think we're looking for, honestly, I don't know that we need a motion out of anything tonight. This is a lot, and this, as Randy said, this is a new big number that we're putting out there. And I think our goal is not to push something quickly on you and then have you even say, let's go ahead and do some open stuff, with the public, and we want you to think about this. We want you to run through that a little bit, talk to us with your questions. Next meeting, we would be asking for some further direction about if you feel comfortable, at least with the concept, to authorize staff to go ahead and start doing some public outreach and things like that. But, again, we don't want to push that through to you really feel, so we'd like to give you till next meeting to make any sort of decision, really. Because it is a big new thing, and, we want the comfort level. But we also would, I think next meeting, like to know where we kind of stand with it. So we do have some time to start that process of getting the public input, of putting together the structure of a new utility, and then bring it back in the future with all that information that we gathered and say, okay, here's what it's going to look like. Here's where we're at with it. Do you pull the trigger on it or not?
All right, Bill.
So is this a time where you would think about maybe talking about doing a public hearing then? So that we could get the feedback from the residents and what they're thinking?
So we were going to look at doing it more as like what we do with the comp plan, as far as like the community outreach sort of meeting things. But we'd like to start with that, but if we don't get the participation or the input, then I do think that we should have then a formal public hearing at the council as well. But we were kind of hoping to do a more direct informational reach out to people. And so that way it can be a little more in depth than what you'd have at just a regular public hearing.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with, after we do that, to still have a public hearing in front of the council before you make a decision, of course. I think that should be part of the process, and that's fine.
Yeah, and we, just to follow up on that too, we were thinking to hopefully target different meetings for different types of entities that are impacted by this. So a residential group of people is going to have a different set of questions than the business community does, and it would kind of make sense to talk to the different groups in ways that they are going to understand, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Yep,
and be
exactly.
more direct. So.
But then after that, though, Sarah, I think you're right. It would make sense to probably have a public hearing with the full council at the end before you make any sort of decision.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you.
I think one thing I'd like to point out, page 109 is the graph that shows the average ratings by year. And from 2019 to 2028 is where we start turning the point at 228. We drop from a 5.0 rating to a 2.0 rating for our minor streets. That's, and Green Street, wasn't it Green Street that just came up?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not,
What's the scale?
that's not that poor.
What's the scale?
That's 10.
1 to 10.
I think Bill
Yeah, we
wants
have-
to get a word in.
Dean's got lots of nice pictures of the different ratings as well, so. But I think that the thing that concerns me is that some of these streets are on a really, really downward trend. And we're not throwing enough money at it to make a dent, even with this. So I'm concerned that this is too conservative, is that we will be going out and patching, ripping up streets, looking for special money to fix Green Street, which is not in our budget, not in our CIP. So that's as the chair of the Public Works, we've been dealing with this for several years, and we really have to turn the corner.
Yeah.
And I think, I know this is gonna hurt. It's gonna be painful. There's gonna be a lot of pushback on this, but people want their streets fixed. This is their choice. It doesn't come free. If you want your streets fixed, we're going to have to pay for it. And we've gotten into the holes that our streets are rapidly, our minor streets and even some of our others, the intermediate streets are deteriorating rapidly. So that's the thing we have to think about in the next 2 weeks, is at what point.
And I'd like to thank Dean and Mike Moraz for all the work they've done on this. They have done yeoman's work. They have put it in layman's terms. They have researched and come up with what they feel is the best option for us. And so I am grateful. And thanks for giving us the information so we can make informed decisions.
Thanks,
And
Sarah.
I think the advantage is we know exactly where we are today. If we've done the work, we know where we're at, and we know where it's headed. So it's, we're acting, any decision we make is going to be made with the best possible information we've ever had.
Who would have the purview over the utility? Would it be like a utility commission, or however we want to set it up, or?
It's however you want to set it up, but my guess would be something like this would be the council that
Right.
would be the one making the decisions on it, yeah.
And we would be able to review that amount,
Mhm.
or is that 170 like lasting for a number of years?
It can be adjusted whenever the council would like to adjust it.
Okay,
It's just our starting point.
gotcha. And so,
Even, as I've said, we don't have to start there either. You can go to a quarter, you can
Sure.
go up to $1. I mean, you have options of, what you want to do.
okay.
I shouldn't say, you go up to a quarter or a full cent, not $1. Quarter.
You could go to
quarter
$1,
cent-
but that
quarter
would be
cent.
very pretty.
I would want to hear the
Whoa.
The other question that I had was just for me to have more meaningful conversations in my district. Where would a company that does logistics and distribution fall within the categories?
So, like an industrial type use?
Yeah,
something like that?
yeah, something that has a lot of trucking.
Yeah, so, going back to this, I did have a light industrial building on there, 40,000 square feet as just an example. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, there's bigger buildings and there's smaller buildings and that kind of thing. So for a $40,000 building, or 40,000 square foot light industrial building is about $300. I mean, you can kind of scale that up adequate or appropriately to. So if you're talking about $100,000.
I get what you're asking.
few hundred
I'll get you a
extra
number.
bucks, yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got all the information that we
We didn't
you
want to
provide
put,
estimates.
we don't want to put names in. But
Yeah.
we
Yes,
we
yes.
basically have run the numbers, so I'll get you the number. Or
Thank you.
Dean will get
I
you.
you
appreciate
could
it.
send them out to everybody,
Yep.
that would be helpful.
We can do that.
And just a clarification, county tax dollars do not come back to the city whatsoever, right? That's county dollars is county dollars. When you're talking wheel tax?
Yes, they keep that.
Correct.
So that's for
Just
upkeep
point of
their county road system or whatever. Yep.
Yep, thank you.
Quick question, Dean, and thank you. I echo Sarah's point. Thank you for I think it's amazing work what you've done in the last year on this, and I've been working with Public Works, and I appreciate that. Clarification question, the 127 million, does that include sewer, or is that strictly road?
That is road plus storm sewer. It did not include water and sanitary sewer.
Okay.
Separate utility, obviously, so.
Okay. And, I know we're not supposed to necessarily, you're not looking to put cards on the table, but I do want to say I've been on Public Works for 3 years, and we have huge issues to catch up on, and huge problems are going to demand huge answers. And so none of us like to add taxes. I think what Randy's point is well taken, but we need to do something. And the longer we wait, and I think, Dean, you said this at a Public Works meeting once, if we don't do this, then the cost goes up to do it later, right? Yep. So it's we're getting in a situation where the longer we wait to act, because we've waited so long for so many years, this problem just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we have to do something. So I'm 100% supportive of taking this to the public. I would encourage you to do hearings. I know you've heard this at Public Works, but I want to say it again with the churches, because I think church budgets, this is going to be an impact on them as well as businesses. So I'm 100% supportive of doing that and getting that public feedback. And then looking at it, we always are in the position, I think, where we can adjust it, right? So we could say it's a quarter cent. We could say it's 3/4 cents. I mean, we have to figure out, we needed public input to figure out what's a reasonable place to start as a starting point. So, but what I'm hearing you saying is you aren't looking for a motion tonight?
Correct, yep. Like Aaron said, kind of digest this until the next council meeting, and then.
It's just a couple weeks.
Yep.
We're not gonna, you don't want to delay this months. We want to delay it just a few weeks because it's new.
Yep.
And something this large, I don't like to ask for a decision that night unless we really need it.
No, I totally respect that. I think that's wise, yep.
Okay. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The discussion and possible action on a community engagement officer. Chief. Should have been wearing white.
Evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Yeah, right. My number is not anywhere near as big as the number he's talking about. No, so what I'm asking for is the creation of a community engagement officer position. I don't think it's any secret over the last year and a half or so that we've all seen the importance of having a trusting, legitimate relationship between the police and the community. Our community is growing to a point where essentially I need help doing that. We're also having a lot of growth from other communities that, well, for lack of a better term, expect something like this. This position would essentially be responsible for everything community related. So communication through our social media accounts, communication with different community events, participation with different community events, building relationships with business owners, community leaders, having neighborhood meetings in neighborhoods so that we can get issues that are seen in certain neighborhoods addressed. And not only that, but have a relationship with them so that we can effectively address those issues. I'm not going to go through the entire job description that we came up with because you all have it, and that's essentially the role of what this position would be. And I guess I will entertain questions.
Anybody?
So have we gotten enough information that, yes, we will be able to use ARPA funding to cover this?
I believe we will. Under the interim direction that we've received, this is a position that would be very actively involved in any future COVID sort of situations, and COVID exposed the fact that we wish we had a better communication infrastructure in place. So we feel this would be eligible, and again, we're not gonna recommend using it past this year, because this is it's a one-time funding source, but this, for the unbudgeted portion of this year, I feel like it's a reasonable use, and then next year, we'll include it in our normal tax, budget and tax levy for the position moving forward.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Give that to Jim.
Pretty popular there, buddy.
Sure. Okay, got it.
We've got a motion and a second to approve. Further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it's a fantastic idea, Chief. I think it's something that I've heard brought up numerous times in the community as a need. I went through the job description and whatnot and thought it was right on target. I think this will be a great position for our community, and I think in policing, the more you can be proactive, right? The more you can get on top of this stuff before you have to deal with the consequences. I see this as just a great proactive long-term investment for the community.
Thank you.
And hi everyone, it's Sarah again, and I agree with Paul and am totally affirmative and think this is a great avenue for our city. I do have a question for the officer that gets hired for this position. Specifically, I love the aspects about the community engagement, building that relationship, establishing goodwill, building trust, phenomenal. The only question I have is I saw some of the more customary things that officers do, and so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to take away, whether it's a female officer or a male officer, their opportunity to really establish those community relationships. So how do you see that kind of rolling out and playing out?
Well, essentially this would be their assignment, right? But you have to give them the same powers and authority that a normal police officer would have to be able to do their job effectively, to be able to really build those relationships. So, but this would be, 80 hours a week, 40 hours a week, 80 hours of payroll, dealing with these issues specifically.
So when it said things like traffic pullover or routine pullovers, that really wouldn't be typically what this officer would be doing. Is that correct then?
That is correct. No, they would have the authority to do that, and obviously if something occurred right in front of them, they'd be obligated to do something. So that's why those are in there. But that wouldn't be their primary job function.
Awesome. I just want to make sure that they're really having the chance to get out there and establish that community relationship. So great work.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, we got a motion and a second in front of us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub A sub G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, 904 Vine Street and 1031 Second Street code violations. Yes. Yes. Is there a motion?
Move to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion is second to go into closed session. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Alms?
Yes.
DeZiel?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Bruck?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Motion's approved. We're in closed session. We will step across the hall and we'll be back. Sarah, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, so we are back in open session.
Was there a motion to come back into open session or no?
I'll take
It was done in there. Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to direct our city attorney to initiate legal action against the properties at 904 Vine Street and 1031 Second Street to comply with our city ordinances.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Communications, recommendations from the mayor. Bill had asked that I give an update on the golden rule. Thank you for that opportunity. Our committee has been very active. We meet every other week, and we're working on a number of initiatives. Let me just start by saying, first of all, we have Riverfest coming up. We're going to have a booth and presence at Riverfest. I've been asked to speak on the Golden Rule that evening. I have been out to different events, different organizations, not so many since the summer has gotten hot, but reading the Golden Rule book and discussing the Golden Rule. I've been invited to some that are happening in September and hopefully also throughout the fall. We have distributed over about 30,000 bookmarks, and just to put that into perspective, about, I think maybe 8,000 of those were the ones that went into the utility bill. So the rest of them have gone out, and we have replenished supplies for organizations and businesses that have requested them. They have been disseminated throughout a number of the businesses throughout the city, and promoting the Golden Rule with our bookmark. I'm sure you've all seen that. We have 250 of these signs that were just printed, and you might see that they have started to go up in the neighborhoods. And these are going to be promoted through the organizations that are represented on the committee. Anybody that would like one, just ask me. I'd be more than happy to provide you with as many as you'd like, up to 100 maybe. We have a big initiative, a big push for August 26th, that's right. And it is going to be based upon the original concept of National Night Out, which dealt with block clubs, right? To talk about public safety way back when. What we want to do, what we're promoting then on that evening, is neighborhood parties in your front yard, in your cul-de-sac, in your backyard. There are some organizations, some churches that are doing something at their facilities, and we want these to, I don't know, it would be great to have discussions about the Golden Rule, but that only goes so far, right? The whole point of the matter is this. We talk about, in order for people to understand one another, they have to be able to communicate with one another. Martin Luther King said it the best, and I wish I could quote him as well as he said that, but he more or less said, we fail to communicate with each other because we fear one another. We fear one another because we don't talk to one another, and therefore we don't understand one another. And that, to me, is the most important concept of what it is that I'm trying to promote, that we need to be able to communicate with one another like we did before, and like we had done generations ago, perhaps, and get an understanding of what the Golden Rule is truly all about, and that is respecting one another and having respect for the fact that we have differences of opinion. And that's okay. We're not supposed to agree with one another. We come to compromises here at the council because we start to understand what is on the minds of every one of the council members and the people they represent. We usually come to a better situation because of the differences that we have and make compromises to accommodate those differences. And that's what community is based upon, not just ours, but all of them, all cultures. So that's important, and that's what I'm striving for with this initiative, is to get acquainted with, get reacquainted with your neighbors, your family, your friends, and just start having open discussions, and maybe avoid the things that create differences and focus on the things that we agree upon. And again, open those channels of communication. I've said this before, I'll say it again, and since I've said this the first time, I can't tell you how many times I have seen this scenario repeated. It saddens me most to see families torn apart, to see kids that can't talk to their families anymore, their parents, and vice versa, to see married couples not being able to communicate with one another. I'm seeing divorces because of problems that people have communicating with each other and not understanding each other. And to see families torn apart, lifelong friendships on Facebook, on social media. I see friends of mine that I know have been friends with each other for over 60 years and will not talk to one another anymore because of primarily the politics that have become center stage. I don't want that infecting our community. I want that to stop. It has started here, and it comes from all sides. There's no finger pointing here. It comes from all sides. And I just want to see that stop. That night is important, August 26th. Have conversations in your neighborhood. Find somebody that will host a meeting, a nice little cookout, a barbecue, whatever, and get reacquainted with your community members, with your neighbors, with your friends. That's an important step, an important start. September 12th after that is going to be in the churches. It will be preached the golden rule from the pulpit. And the members of the Ministerial Association are promoting that. That's what we have going on. And it takes some time. It's not just an overnight thing. It obviously takes time to get these things organized and to get them moving. And we've got a great group of dedicated people. One of the groups that I forgot to mention, by the way, is a Women of Faith group from St. Pat's with Judy Freund, who has also been very, very active in all of this. So I apologize, Judy, for that. But you know, I think we're moving forward, and I think we have some great things going. And once we get all of this off the ground, then we'll come back to the council and we'll start talking about where the city fits into all of this. But, and hopefully, you know, it sounds to me like everybody on the council's in agreement that they would like to have to be part, the council and the city to be part in the golden rule. But I wanted to get this thing off the ground before we actually brought it to the city. So that's what's going on with the Golden Rule right now, the Golden Rule Initiative, and I appreciate the opportunity, the question, what's going on. Appreciate the opportunity to get everybody up to speed and informed of what we're doing. Questions?
If somebody wants to host a party on the 26th,
Yeah.
do they communicate that? Do they just do a pickup game? Like, how does that work?
Just do a pickup game. What we're doing, we're gonna have flyers as well. They're gonna go out. We're printing a bunch of flyers. They're gonna be distributed through the organizations, service organizations, and somehow we're gonna communicate that through social media and Facebook and things like that. So it's one thing to say, hey, have a neighborhood party, but it's a whole different ballgame to say, but somebody's got to initiate that party.
Right.
Somebody's got to do that. So yeah, it's just kind of a pickup thing.
Okay.
One of the things I forgot to mention is that we're also talking about having a drawing or drawings for neighborhoods that, you know, it's just a random thing. It's not based upon anything about what they're doing, what they're planning. It's just if your neighborhood is planning something, let us know. We will put that neighborhood of that, the name of that neighborhood in a hat, draw it out, and you know, we're throwing some different ideas around about having an ice cream truck come out there to that neighborhood or a couple neighborhoods and give them free ice cream and maybe some other things. We're looking for some participation from some local businesses in that effort as well.
I love it. If somebody wants to host a neighborhood party at a local park, is that, they just go through Parks Department to book that or something like that?
And a lot of times you don't really need anything special permit for that at all. We just, you know, you've
Yeah.
got the pavilions and things like that. So, yep, just contact Parks and we'll figure that out, no problem.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks for the update.
Jim, anything?
Sure. Point of personal privilege, I think at a couple meetings ago, I said I was going to be gone by January 1st, that I wasn't spending another winter here. Well, not going to spend another fall here. Our house is sold, we close on the 31st. We will be in the area because of appointments and different things we have through the end of September. And at that point, then, we're heading to Arizona. So I guess and Nick and Aaron and the mayor and I have been kicking us around, how does this work, and what's responsible, what's appropriate. And my concern is I want my district to be represented quickly. So, and I can do it, maybe a little bragging. I think it was Rich, that I said, I could probably represent the district for the next 6 months because I know what's going on. But after that, my knowledge is going to diminish, what's happening, and I know my district. So I could do that, but I don't think that's appropriate. So I guess now I turn it over to any of you three who have some comments to make about how this process works, where we go from here.
I think we just let that unfold. Nick or Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, the council will have to have the conversation
Yeah.
about how they want to do it. I mean, there's not a lot of options, really. You know, I think you've got two options. You either appoint as a council to fill in for the interim, or you have a special election, or you just wait and fill it. We do have a regular election coming. But that is something the council.
Three options.
Yeah, I guess three options.
Okay.
Or Jim can continue on even remotely. That is acceptable.
Yeah.
Is that as a council member, you can continue on remotely even after you move out, as long as you have this election coming up that it's going to fill that seat. We had that. We had that verified, that is an option too. Not that, as Jim said, he doesn't know if that's the best option or not, but that is an option, that he can still continue even if he no longer lives, even in the city, as long as we know it's for a set amount of time leading up to an election. Just because we're in that little kind of odd window where, and unfortunately Jim's leaving, and then we have another election coming, but it's only it's a pretty short gap in between, really. So the options are there.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim, and I opt for the last one, which is, you hang in there as long as you really want to. But, because you've done a great job, and obviously you know the issues, and you could do it for the next 6 months very easily. So, but anyway, and we'll have plenty of opportunity to be talking about your past tenure here, but thank you for your service, and we'll see how this works out.
I guess I serve at the council's will. Isn't that the way it is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. All those in favor? Oh,
Knock it off, Miraz. It was fine.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.